Open our hearts to the wideness of your mercy, and let your grace have the final word. Amen. Please be seated. There is something uncomfortable about today's gospel. And I don't want to make it comfortable. A Canaanite woman comes to Jesus crying, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." She is a mother. A child is suffering. And she believes Jesus can help. But Jesus does not answer her. Matthew says, he did not answer her at all. Silence. Then the disciples get involved. They were not invited, but they got involved. And their response is even worse. Send her away. She is loud. Have you been there? She's a mad woman. She is persistent, but she is foreign. She is not one of us. She came from that tribe that Noah, I don't know if you remember the story, that Noah cursed. Send her away. And then Jesus said, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But this woman would not leave. She kneels before him. Lord, help me. And Jesus responds with words that are difficult to hear. It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. I don't want to rescue Jesus from that sentence. Sometimes I think we are so determined to protect Jesus' divinity that we forget his humanity. We confess Jesus was fully divine. But we forget that we also confess that Jesus was fully human. Jesus is the only being that is not a mathematical equation. It's not 50% God, 50% human. It was 100% human, but 100% fully God. Jesus was a Jew. Jesus was a man. Jesus lived in a particular culture among a particular people at a particular moment in history. And here he stands face to face with someone his whole world had taught him to see as an outsider. Canaanite, woman, foreigner, and she will not go away. Because she knows something about borders. She knows what it means to stand on the right side, on the wrong side, instead of one. And beloveds, so do we. We live in a world filled with borders. Some borders are drawn on maps. Some borders are written into laws. Some borders are built into institutions. And some borders are hidden inside of us. Borders between them and us. Those who belong and those who don't. Those we understand and those we fear. Those we welcome and those we will rather send away. And before we point fingers at somebody else, we need to recognize something. Good people have borders too. Religious people have borders. Justice-loving people have borders. We may call them differently. We call them limits. We call them boundaries. The church has borders. You and I have borders. Sometimes we don't even know where they are until somebody crosses them. But this woman keeps talking. Jesus says, it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. And she answers, yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. I don't know for you, but I am comfortable to let Jesus play the role of the villain in the story. Because the gospel came from that woman. What a woman! She does not walk away. She does not accept that somebody else's blessing means that there can be a blessing for herself. She believes that God's mercy is greater than the border separating them, and suddenly, I love Matthew, because when it doesn't say immediately, he replaced it by suddenly. Grace takes over the debate. Jesus looked at her and said, woman, great is your faith. Not Canaanite anymore, not foreigner, not outsider. Woman, great is your faith. You see, from the mad woman, she became a woman of faith. That's what grace does to people who want to be transformed. You can be a mad woman or a mad man as much as you want, but when grace knocks at your door, what is your response to it? Not only Jesus proclaimed her as a woman of faith, but her daughter is immediately, instantly, suddenly healed. You see what happened? Grace wins. Maybe Isaiah already knew where this story was going, because centuries earlier, God had declared to the mouth of Isaiah, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all people. All peoples. Not some, not just ours. All people. The border was never never going to have the final word. And that is good news for us. Because the good news is not that faithful people never have borders inside of them. The good news is that grace can cross the borders we have not yet learned to cross. Grace crossed the border between Jew and Canaanite. Grace crossed the border between man and woman. Grace crossed the border between insider and outsider. Grace crossed the border and a child was healed. Do you believe that grace can still cross borders? That grace is still crossing borders as I speak. Because you know what? Grace has no passport. Grace needs no visa. Grace stops at no checkpoint. When we say send them away, grace says bring them near. When we say they don't belong, grace says my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. So when we draw another line, grace is already crossing it. Now, let's think about grace a little bit. And see the amplitude of the grace that we've received from Jesus on the cross. I'm not sure if you remember the picture where the veil of the temple was torn apart so that there will be no borders anymore. But you know what we do? Oh, we are a black church. And then whenever we see a white person walking into it, we don't feel at ease. Oh, we are a church, we serve only a God who said homosexuality is a sin. We don't put it in context. We just throw it. And then we have to hide if we are one of them. Because the church doesn't want to embrace us. Oh, we are just a white church. We will not even hire a black rector because we are such a rich church. We are such an important church. Black rectors are not educated enough to be our rector. Sometimes we criticize white church for doing that. But be a black rector and come to a black church. You'll be surprised how you will be disrespected by your own folks. Amen. So grace, my friends, must win. Our humanity will keep drawing lines. Our fears will keep building walls. Our prejudices will keep creating borders, but thanks be to God, grace has no borders. So whenever our humanity draws a line, I pray that may God's grace take over the debate and may grace win.